All right, here we're going to talk about LangGraph and Arise Phoenix and how they can go together to better have traceability and observability on your AI project. Here I have an AI project. It's a email monitoring service. It takes an inbox and figures out if the email is a bounce back, a spam. This is for Seattle Give Camp. I'm doing both fundraising and volunteer coordination. So if it is a volunteer email and they have questions about maybe take it off the list because they've already signed up and they can't make it, or they have questions about what they can bring, or if it's a fundraising email response back and they're saying, hey, I can support, great, or take me off your list, whatever, that sort of thing. All those need to be accounted for in an automated fashion. I'm not doing them all. And I also don't have a ton of credits to do this, so I'm running the models locally. I'm using a smaller model. I'm using Microsoft Phi. So how this works is a scheduler that looks at the emails. It goes through, it takes 50 emails that haven't been read. It then determines if they're spam. If they're spam, it routes them one way. It then, you know, threads them, looks through, makes sure they're classified in the right classification, whether or not this is a person looking for more information, because they're a volunteer, or maybe a person looking for more information because they're a potential sponsor. It goes through uh, that. It figures out if we thought it was spam. It does the double check to make sure it's nothing we sent out in the past, and then it's not a false spam. And then it goes looks in their Milvus database to make sure that it is a similarity. There's a similarity to a question that's already been asked. So it can look at our FAQ base basically in Milvus and make sure that it understands the question and how to respond back. And then it routes um, the email to the proper, either it's going to send out a follow-up email, it's going to delete the email if it's spam, or it's going to go back and take our spreadsheet that I'm storing information in Google Sheets and delete that entry if it's a bad email address we sent out in the first place. If it gets confused anywhere along the way, it can send me a Telegram bot, and I can respond to that, and then it can do its own thing as far as deleting the email, or that can be a direct response to someone. So what this looks like in Arise Phoenix is here we have Arise Phoenix. It's an open source project. It's in GitHub. It supports a lot of integration, but it doesn't really need to because it's uses own telemetry. They just make a bunch of um, of you know, different SDKs to help you out, but really it's you really don't need it in many cases. You just go and in this case, they have an OpenTelemetry one here, but you get away with not setting up OpenTelemetry or starting up using the Arise Phoenix and just use OpenTelemetry straight. It's up to you. So here I am in Arise Phoenix. We see it has a lot of different features. We're not going to go over those features. Just tracing. Just tracing is probably the most important thing. So I have LangGraph, and you can see my graph. I have the things we just talked about in that diagram. We're fetching emails, where we can see it takes a little while to fetch emails, so we can see we have some latency there. We're going to be doing some filtering and some classification and some routing of emails. And then at the end, we can see when we started out, and this a little bit, we can see that when we started out, we had this check into your flight for San Francisco, and we did some classification. And then as we go down, this is context, right? And context is something you always kind of keep. We see the top of this never changes, but the bottom keeps changing. So we go down and we see our context. So our agent needs to know our full history of what went on. And as we go down to the bottom here, we have our classification one. We want to go to the bottom. We can see that at the end, we have an output from this classification. And in this case, our intent was unclear. Is this spam? It didn't know. If this saying check into your flight for San Francisco was spam or not. And so going down our route, it's not going to hit their knowledge base. It's not going to do a bunch of things. It's going to, or maybe I think maybe it does, but it's going to eventually come down to our escalation, and that's going to trigger. If we go down to the bottom, say, hey, I'm on step 8 of my graph. I'm on my escalation node, and I'm going to be sending out through my tool request an exception to Telegram, and that will comes in my Telegram bot, and it's going to say something like, "Hey, there is an Alaska Airlines issue," and I can respond back to this, and that'll go back to the customer, or it's going to interpret that and then go back to either if it's spam, I could say delete, or I could say respond back with this, that sort of thing. But this allows me to see where it was along the steps. Some of the issues that I have with this, we go back to the info, is this is very verbose. I should get rid of all these links. Just have it send it over as text. Because again, I'm using a local LLM, so I don't have a lot of overhead as far as what I can send it before it kind of doesn't do as good a job. I chose Microsoft 5 because it's really good at answering emails, and that's kind of a strong suit. It's not a really good coding one. It's not really good at tool calls. This is why LangGraph is doing all the tool calling for me, and we're just using our Microsoft 5 for responding to emails, and then a little bit of classification where other tools might not be the right choice. And that's basically the gist of it. The main value of this is without this, right? I wouldn't know, A, my latencies, what's taken so long to do things. This took 26 seconds for 50 emails, which is not actually that bad. But I also wouldn't be able to say, hey, oh, this looks really bad, right, along the way. Look at my context along the way. Look at my results for each step of the way, what decisions it made, and where it went along the path. Did it skip parts of my path? Because LangGraph, I can have it skip parts, go from node 6 to node 10, depending on conditions being met. It's basically a decision tree at some point. I can make loops. I can go back so I can see, hey, maybe I need to go back in a circle and do some other things. The LangGraph gives me that power of doing things. Oh, the other part is I can see what got sent over to the LLM. In this case, it was trying to do some more classification. It said, here's my threshold. It gave it an email. Again, we're taking 50 unread emails, up to 50 in this case. And we see my response back was 95%. It thought this was a spam email, pretty confident. And so it's going to give that back to LangGraph, who's going to take the appropriate actions based off thresholds that we set up earlier and actions to take on spam emails. So that's the LangGraph and Arise Phoenix and tracing and observability in a nutshell. A lot of the things you can do, but this is a really good start.